first grade, we are going to jump back into our book, Those Shoes. I love this book. It is such an amazing, amazing book. And today, our objective is we're going to say, I can identify how characters change in our story. Now, in the beginning of the year, when we were really focused on our narrative text, we learned that there could be two different types of characters. We learned a character who stays the same from the beginning to the end of the story is called a static character, where they don't change at all. Where we think of the opposite of that, a character who does go through changes in how they feel, how they act, that is called a dynamic character. So that person goes through changes within the story. And oftentimes there's select events that happen that cause them to feel different ways. And a character can feel lots of different feelings and emotions throughout a story. And it's important to key into how they're feeling because it's going to help us better understand the story, and if there's a lesson to be learned in our story, it's usually through how a character changes. And so today in our reading of Those Shoes, we're going to read it together, and as we're reading, we're going to be using some post-it notes to capture how our main character Jeremy is feeling and why. And then in our seesaw account, you are going to be identifying how did Jeremy feel in the beginning of the story and why, and then the middle and the end, and what caused him to change, and what lesson did he end up learning in our story, okay? So we're going to be pausing throughout our reading to fill in our feelings, how Jeremy is feeling on our post-notes. I'm going to set those to the side. If you hear some random noises in the background, it's Handel. He's trying to get treats out of his treat ball. He knocks a little plastic ball around and treats come out. All right, so let's get started with Those Shoes. I have dreams about those shoes. Black high tops, 2 white stripes. Grandma, I want them. There's no room for want around here, just need, Grandma says. And what you need are new boots for winter. Brandon T comes to school in those shoes. He says he's the fastest runner now, not me. I was always the fastest before those shoes came along. Nate comes to school in those shoes. Antonio, I count how many times Nate goes to the bathroom. 7 times in one day, just so he can walk up and down the hall real slow. Next, Alan, Jacoby, and Terrence each get a pair. So I want you to take a look at Jeremy right there. And I want you to think, what could be a word we could use to describe the way he may be feeling right now? Because I know right now in our story, all of his friends at school have those really cool black shoes with white stripes that he really, really wants, but he doesn't have them. So how do you think he is feeling? I think some of us would probably say that he is feeling, oops, I'm drawing upside down, which is the wrong thing. Wrong post-it note. So what I was thinking is a lot of us probably think he's feeling a little bit sad. And he's feeling sad because all of his friends have those shoes and he doesn't. Now, another word that we could put on here, which we've talked a couple of times about, is the word jealous, where you really want something that someone else has, but you don't have it. And so because everyone else has those shoes and he doesn't, he may be feeling a little bit jealous. And so we have sad and jealous could be possible ways Jeremy feels right off the bat in our story in the very beginning. Then one day in the middle of kickball, one of my shoes comes apart. Looks like you could use a new pair, Jeremy, Mr. Alfred, the guidance counselor, says. He brings out a box of shoes and other stuff that he has for kids who need things. There's that word, needs. He helps me find the only shoes that are my size. Velcro. Like the ones my little cousin Marshall wears. They have an animal on them from a cartoon I don't think any kid has ever watched. When I come back to the classroom, Alan Jacoby takes one look at my Mr. Alfred's shoes and laughs. And so do Terrence and Brandon T and everyone else. The only kid not laughing is Antonio Parker. At home, Grandma says, "How kind of Mr. Alfred." I nod and turn my back. I'm not going to cry about any dumb shoes, but when I'm writing my spelling words later, every word looks like the word shoes. and my grip is so tight on my pencil, I think it might bust. So let's stop and let's pause here and think about, how does our character Jeremy feel right now in our story? I would agree with probably what you're thinking, is that Jeremy is feeling angry. That's a good way of describing how he's feeling. Or we could say the word upset. Maybe he's really upset. I'll make an angry face. And what is causing him to feel angry and upset? Yeah, he has to wear kind of babyish shoes from the guidance counselor that Mr. Jacoby gave, or Mr. Alfred gave him, and he feels probably upset and angry because he wants those shoes, but now he has these shoes that like everyone made fun of. And some of the actions that I saw where kids were laughing at him and making fun of him, which can make him feel angry. And I also heard in the text that he was holding his pencil so tight that it could bust, which makes me think of an action that he's doing, which shows me that he is angry. On Saturday, Grandma says, "Let's check out those shoes you're wanting so much. I got a little money set aside. Might be enough. You never know." At the shoe store, Grandma turns the shoes over so she can check the price. When she sees it, she sits down heavy. "Maybe they wrote it wrong," I say, and Grandma shakes her head. Then I remember the thrift shops. What if there's a rich kid who outgrew his or got two for Christmas and had to give one away? We ride the bus to the first thrift shop. Black cowboy boots, pink slippers, sandals, high heels, every kind of shoe except the ones I want. We ride the bus to the second thrift shop, not a pair of shoes in sight. Around the corner is the third thrift shop. I see something in the window. Black shoes with 2 white stripes. High tops, perfect shape. $2.50. Those shoes. What? How do you think he's feeling right now in our story? Yeah, I was thinking he's probably feeling excited. Maybe he is feeling happy that he finally found a pair of those shoes. Oops, EXCITED, or happy, right? Because he finally wanted those shoes. My heart is pounding hard as I take off my shoes and I hitch up my baggy socks. "How exciting," Grandma says. "What size are they?" I shove my foot into the first shoe, curling my toes to get my heel in. I don't know, but I think they fit. I don't know if they fit. Grandma kneels on the floor and feels for my toes at the end of the shoe. "Oh, Jeremy," she says, "I can't spend good money on shoes that don't fit." I pull the other shoe on and try to walk around. "They're okay," I say, holding my breath and praying that my toes will fall off right then and there. But my toes don't fall off. I buy them anyway with my own money, and I squeeze them on and I limp to the bus stop. At home, a few hours later, Grandma puts a new pair of snow boots in my closet and doesn't say a word about my 2 big feet shuffling around in my 2 small shoes. "Sometimes shoes stretch," I say, and Grandma gives me a hug. You look really closely at that picture. You see he has Band-Aids all over his feet because he has blisters and they're rubbing up against. Now I'm wondering how he's feeling right now in our story about his shoes. He bought them with his own money, but they really don't fit him. How do you think he's feeling about that? Yeah, maybe he's feeling a little bit frustrated right now because he really, really, really wants those shoes, but the closest he could get were shoes that were way too small for him, and maybe that's a little frustrating. So he could be frustrated, right? I don't know how to do frustrated face. A little frustrated. I check every day, but those shoes don't stretch. I had to wear my Mr. Alfred's to school instead. One day during math, I glance at Antonio's shoes. One of them is taped up, and his feet look smaller than mine. After school, I head to the park to think. Antonio is there, the only kid who didn't laugh at my Mr. Alfrey shoes. We shoe baskets, and a loose piece of tape on Antonio's shoe smacks the concrete every time he jumps. I think I'm not going to do it. We leap off the swings. I'm not going to do it. We race from one end of the playground to the other. I'm not going to do it, I say. Do what? Antonio says, breathing hard. Grandma calls me for supper and invites Antonio over too. After supper, he spies my shoes. How come you don't wear them? Antonio says. I shrug. My hands are sweaty. I can feel him wishing those shoes were his. That night, I am awake for a long time thinking about Antonio. When morning comes, I try on my shoes one last time. Before I can change my mind, the shoes are in my coat. Snow is beginning to fall as I run across the street to Antonio's apartment. I put the shoes in front of his door, push the doorbell, and run. At school, Antonio is smiling big in his brand new shoes. I feel happy when I look at his face and mad when I look at my Mr. Alfrey shoes. But later, when it's time for recess, something happens. Snow is everywhere. Leave your shoes in the hall and change into your boots, the teacher announces. Leave your shoes in the hall? It's then I remember what I have in my backpack. New boots, new black boots that no kid has ever worn before. Standing in line to go to recess, Antonio leans forward and says, thanks. I smile and give him a nudge. Let's race. I want you to think about how Jeremy feels at the end of the story and why. Now, our character Jeremy went through a lot of changes in our story. I think that Jeremy is definitely a dynamic character because he changed from how he felt in the beginning of the story to the end of our story. We heard that in the beginning of the story, he was feeling sad and jealous because he didn't have those shoes and everyone else did. Then we learned that he became angry and upset because kids made fun of the shoes that his guidance counselor gave him. Then we learned that he became excited and happy when he finally got a pair of those shoes. But then he became frustrated because they were too small for him. And so throughout our story, he changed depending on the events that were going on. And finally, at the end of the story, he was able to learn a lesson about what he should do when he sees others that need something. So in your Seesaw account, you are going to open it up and you're going to fill in the sentence stems about how he feels in the beginning of the story versus the end of the story and why, and what could we learn from this book? What could we apply to our own lives? And I will see everyone back here tomorrow to continue talking about those shoes. All right, have a great day, first grade. Bye.